As Moses said, I am the co-executive director for community engagement at Transmission Ministry Collective. I'm calling in from San Diego, California. So greetings from the West Coast for those of you on the other side of the states. And TMC is a nonprofit ministry. It's an online, well, primarily online community, but we do have we are working towards building more community in person. And we work to connect and empower trans and gender expansive people within Christian contexts so they can explore their gender and their faith without having to separate the two, where they can share in holistic care together in community, and also where they can develop as leaders, embracing the fullness of who they are. And I want to say, just starting out like with this reflection, this passage means so much to me personally. I am a trans woman myself. I came out around 2019, 2020, right around that kind of pandemic time. But before that, I've been in ministry since I graduated from undergrad. I was on staff with a InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which it's a campus ministry, but is a non-affirming space. And it was a very kind of challenging space where I felt like I had to hide who I was. I had to kind of keep my transness, even though I didn't have the words for it or even hadn't fully processed or accepted it. I felt that, and also because I grew up in a very conservative space, I felt that if I was to accept my trans identity and begin coming out and transition, that I would be cut off from God's love, that I would be outside of the community. I also knew at the time that I would no longer be able to stay employed as a campus minister because we fundraised for our own support, for our own salary. And I knew that if I came out, I would probably lose over half of my donor base, and it would not be sustainable for myself or my wife. And so it wasn't until about 2018 when I encountered a video actually on this passage, Isaiah 56, verses 1-5. And it was on YouTube, on the Austin Hartkey, on his YouTube channel. Austin Hartkey is the founder of TMC, was the former executive director before he stepped down a couple years ago. And it was that video that kind of began to open my mind to the possibility that God is so expansive. And as was kind of talked about, like as was Anna and Moses were talking about, is that God cares more about justice and kind of doing what's right in the world, caring for the poor, than God wants to kind of litigate or kind of make this kind of here's what you can express yourself with your gender or sexuality. And in fact, that there is a monument and name that God maybe not only was accepting that I could be accepted, but that God had a name for me. And it was actually my name, Micah Melody. Melody is a name that God gave to me in prayer one day and was affirmed in my charismatic church again and again by people who were non-affirming. Through them, God saying, I'm giving you a new song. I'm giving you a new melody. And that kept happening for about 2 years. This is the power of of God embracing and embracing us in the trans community, in the queer community. And I love what I think it was Anna who said, trans people showing the world what a world based on creativity and abundance looks like when we live wholly into who we are. And that's that is so accurate. That's so true. This is the work that we try to do within TMC of empowering people to live into who they are. The trans joy is resistance. It's liberation. It's flourishing. It's freedom. And I can 100% appreciate what you said, Moses, about the weight being removed from the shoulders. There's something so liberating, healing, resurrecting when we get to embrace the wholeness of who we are. And I'll just close kind of this reflection by saying I'm so amazed by how Spirit works, because just this week, I was invited to be an officiant at a renaming ceremony for one of the longtime members of the TMC community, who had the name for a long time, but wanted to have people from their community representing 3 different communities, their trans Christian community, their intersex community, and also their home church spiritual community, and invited 3 officiants to come and be part of blessing them into their name. And this passage was the passage that was read out, because there is something so powerful about the promise that God gives a new monument and a name. And that name is that's that kind of piece of in the shalom, the wholeness, and that experience of embracing who we are and the resurrection life that we then get to show to the world. That is part of the joy of and the blessing that trans people are given by God in this world. And so, just want to encourage you all, for those who are queer and trans, know that you have a monument and a name, and that God is embracing you. And for those of you who are cis and straight allies, I encourage you to see the joy and see the new life in your queer and trans siblings. There's so much that God is doing through them, and we need to continue to empower more queer and trans leaders in the world. So thank you again for inviting me here.